Hey everybody, I'm Jody Vance.
And I'm George-Affleck.
And it's time for...
Baby, you could drive my car. Boop, 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 boop. UnSpun. I think you have a little bit of a victory here today. Maybe a little bit. You're doing your happy dance. Happy dance.
I'm a little bit... For those just listening on the podcast, I am hands in the air. And mostly I'm going to put my hands in the air on behalf of those who battled hard on the want to create an accessible Stanley Park for all people with disabilities, people who had limited access to the park over the last 2+ years now because of the hastily implemented park drive bike lane where people are screaming, it's going to be taken away now. There's no bike lane in Stanley Park. Yes, there is. It's on the seawall. It's always been there and it's fine. Go back to the seawall. Somebody, George, should build a velodrome somewhere else and make it accessible to all cyclists. No, I'm serious. It's a great business model because apparently millions and millions of cyclists require this. Build one. Use it.
You can ride on the road still quite easily enough because cars go about 10 kilometers an hour around Stanley Park, and it's not impossible to ride on the current roads because there is a couple of bottlenecks for sure if you cycle around there, which we do on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
But that hill is daunting. So riding or even walking around the point there is preferable certainly with my youngest to go up that hill. But there is a plan. Imagine that, a concept. They're going to put a plan together to put a properly designed bike lane that doesn't include paying for private sector cones that are costing them. I think it's $100 a pop per cone. And there are 10,000 cones? So they're spinning.
Are you kidding?
I don't know. Yeah, it's $100 per month.
$100 a cone a month?
That's what I've heard. Yeah, the big ones. Yeah. Because why would you buy cones?
Let me just pick my mouth up off my jaws on the floor. Anyway, okay, so let's
back
up.
Wait,
what happened, guys?
What happened, guys? Business.
Are you? I want George Affleck's face on all the cones. Let's go back to how this came to pass, okay? So the now ABC dominant park board, right?
Yes.
The ABC majority park board, who promised through the election, George, an election promise delivered. I mean, I gotta say, that impresses me. I've been so starved for actual meaningful moves made.
I mean, the bar was nice and low for the park board.
Super low.
So, I mean,
think you get lower than where the
it was pretty darn low. Was. Not as the grass exceeded the height of the bar by a lot. There you go. Throw it all together for you.
Podcast over. Thanks for coming, everybody. Honestly, though, George. Okay, so they're getting it done.
Yep.
They got it done. And also at the same time, so the Stanley Park bike lane, the park drive bike lane will be taken out by Christmas. And there was the big brouhaha. The biking lobby was coming at me on Twitter again because I was like, oh, the park board does the right thing. And again, they just swarm, right? It's like, calm down. Just
they're paid by the city to do that.
Are they?
Well, yeah, they get hundreds of thousands of dollars from the city. They get this is the hub guys, right? There's a really, I think it's Bob Mackin broke it all down. The actual money they get, millions of dollars from government to lobby government.
I would hope that Ken Sim, when the accountant starts accounting the accounts, looks at that and stops it. Yeah, that is insane.
It's one of those. There's a lot of those grants they are given out by the city that intentionally disrupt management of the city. There is an irony to this program. If you are going to spend your entire budget that you are provided by the city to lobby the city to slow down the city or to influence the city, I don't understand. Just find your own money and influence the city. I don't get how this little. Is this Peter pays Paul? I don't even understand what's going on here. What the metaphor is, but it's not a good look.
Wow. I'm just, honestly, the more you teach me about the inner workings of City Hall, the more I wonder if we aren't all being bamboozled when it comes to the necessity of tax dollars. I mean, my garbage wasn't picked up for 2 weeks because it snowed. Oh my God. Oh my God. Right? Like, how about we make sure that works
But if you don't shovel your
before?
sidewalk, somehow somebody magically shows up and puts a sticker on your door saying you're going to get fined. How did that person get around? But we can't get a garbage truck to pick up this
That,
snow.
George, yet again, you are telling me the thing that keeps me up at night going, what? Like, how? And then I took the dogs for a walk around the block, and there were 3, frontings that are fully ice covered. And,
Mm-hmm.
so there are people that aren't doing the thing and they're not getting ticketed, but some, random person that has been working nights at the hospital, with no means to do the fix on the snow in front of the place is getting the ticket. Like, it's very random, kind of like, if I may, do what you did with the grass and bring it all together, like people having picnics at the beach getting ticketed for having a glass of wine or a beer or whatever.
Ridiculous.
This just in, there's cider in our Starbucks cup. Okay. Like, there is. So it's the people that are sitting there minding their own business, sitting with their family, eating a sandwich outside, maybe
Ridden
doing
their
the
bike,
safe
potentially
outdoor.
on their bikes. Nice little
Yep.
bike ride with
Yep.
a nice bottle of wine, little baguette, very European.
Little
Want to have a
baguettes,
have a little lunch on the beach, and not bug anybody and not be obnoxious. But nope, here's $100 fine or whatever it is from the police and from the rangers who should be doing other things with their time. Please, I can think of 100 things you could be doing in our parks and our beaches that don't involve finding me sitting with my family, having a glass of wine or a beer, and enjoying the most beautiful city in the world. Ridiculous. And we've been talking about this for 4 years, and they started this stupid pilot project with these most obscure. If anybody ever saw the signs about where these locations were, it was bizarre. There's one by my house that literally they decided, okay, it's going to be in this little stretch beside in David Lamb Park, not in the other park that is literally where everybody hangs out. And this was the park by the school. And we went, okay, so we were compliant. I was with somebody who works at the city and they wanted to be compliant. So we went to this one little section, this little point where we thought, well, obviously this is part of that because it's, it makes sense to come. And then we left there and we looked at the sign again. And for some reason, that little point it was like a beautiful place to have a picnic. And we wanted to have a beer and a glass of wine and have a picnic. We want to be compliant. But we were confused, and we were with a person from the city who said, oh, what? That's weird. Why isn't that
with a person from the city and still confused?
Yes,
is the problem here, George? Why?
Yeah.
Okay, so why on Earth? Why on God's green earth? I will say. Why is it safe and responsible to consume an adult beverage as an adult on that stretch of grass, but over there, it's not? Like, this just bizarre. Doesn't make, you want to talk nanny state? That's what nanny state looks
100%,
like.
100%.
That's what, and it's just, and the people that are like, if you don't want to drink, don't drink. And people are like, what about, if you let drinking in parks, there's going to be chaos on the streets. Everybody will be smashed. Are you kidding me right now? Going to a park and consuming alcohol is no different than going to a restaurant or a bar and consuming alcohol. Responsibility in not drinking and driving remains the same, people. Because you drank it outdoors on a grassy knoll looking out at the sunset doesn't make it extra strong. Like, it's just the arguments on the extremes of both sides.
But yeah, and it's and to follow the rules of good societal behavior. Don't be obnoxious and get wasted. And the police can deal with that when they have to deal with that. I mean, as they would in any given place and location in the city. If you're drunk, you come out of a bar, you're wasted, you're obnoxious, you get drunk and disorderly charges. This exists in a different way. So if you're drunk and disorderly on the beach, there's ways to deal with that. But me sitting with my kids, having a nice glass of wine, or Amanda just going for a bike ride and having one little glass of wine, and some takeout. Like, what is the problem here? Like, this is all good.
There should be no problem here.
So few restaurants on the water in the city, which is bizarre, right? We have very few places to eat on our beaches. We have all beaches everywhere. Waterfront. You can't. There's like 4 locations in our city that you can sit on a patio on the water. So the only place to do this, because of our regulation about how we own our waterfront, which is great, but let's use it to the max.
Let's also use to the max our law enforcement officers who spend their summer evenings riding around in groups of 3 on quads along the beach, looking for people and opening up their coolers with, when they move their toddler out from beside the cooler to see if they have anything in there. Like,
The
let's
baby
just
pram
stop
with the
that.
booze in it. No baby, just a bit, just a case of beer, but no baby. Those people.
But let's find the people who are partying all night long down the beach, leaving the big, swaths of
Yeah,
junk and garbage and trash and bottles and what I saw
those
in
people,
Pacific Spirit Park,
100%.
right? Like the people that are
Now,
having the ticketed raves. Like how about we focus on those and not the
please.
people that are going to have their takeout with a friend in a safe distance fashion and it
And
I'm
if
just
you
so
still want to drink, but you also want to be naked, you have to go to Wreck Beach. We still can't. We're not allowing any nakedness yet on our beaches. But if you want to have a
one day
beer and be naked, you got to go to Wreck Beach.
One day it'll be legal to do almost both everywhere. I mean, in Spain, I took Brady to Spain. He was 8 years old, and he
Yeah,
turned around. There were these 2 beautiful young women, like
yeah,
you know,
horrible. I'm sure, terrible,
very young
traumatic.
women, and topless line that you didn't even notice. Didn't even
You
notice.
didn't even notice. Yeah, I lived in Denmark and that
Boobies.
happened. I was like,
Oh
okay, whoa.
God, boobies.
But yeah, Barcelona, I went there and you literally walk along the beach and then it's clothing and then suddenly not clothing. You're just like, okay, right in the city,
Right.
right in the city. Just like Vancouver.
Well,
Could
that's
be. But anyways, I
also
don't want to, I'm not
at
going to get on a rant about getting people being naked on the beach. But if you want to be naked, you still have
you
to go to Wreck
can.
Beach.
You do.
You
Here
can.
you do.
In
Okay,
fact,
but here's
actually,
the
my
deal.
ex-wife once she was Swedish and we went to the beach, and in Sweden they have everybody's topless at the beaches. It's just what you do. And so we went down to English Bay. This is when we first were together, and she took off her top and laid down because she thought that's just what you do. And oh my God, it was bizarre because people started sitting on the logs when they were allowed to
Right.
have logs on our beaches. Can we fix that too? And sitting there just
Aren't they
staring at
coming
us.
back?
Well,
I think they're coming
they took
back.
them away again. I don't understand. They put them in
They took the
log jail
fences
again.
down.
Yeah.
No, they took the fences down.
Did they? Okay. Just
Yeah,
leave them on
log
the
jail.
beach. What is the problem? Leave them there. What is the problem? We got to clean the beaches.
I
Okay,
think
move them, clean them, and then put them back. I don't know.
you know what the problem is, and this is another thing that was addressed at this park board meeting, which has the top of my head popping off a little bit because I do blame because we did fund the velodrome for the bike lobby for the last 2 years. We are paying for those cones. We are paying for the lost
Yep.
revenue. Parking
Yep.
has gone up significantly. It's gone up 9% per hour
Wow.
in Stanley Park. So not an insignificant bump. And that's going to hit everybody. Like when a family goes down there and you can't just park for a few minutes, you have to park in chunks there now, which I disagree with. But this park board, looking at the cost and the loss, and our sources were telling us last year, George, that Kitts Pool, it being understaffed, had very little to do with COVID. It had very little to do with a lifeguard shortage. It had everything to do with the budget because the park board budget was decimated because it was mismanaged by the last board. And we have been upset about that for years. I'm so glad that it's changed. It appears that the incoming board has some sense of priorities. And that's not just because I agree with taking out the bike lane and I agree that the pilot project to allow responsible alcohol consumption in parks, like these are things that just make common sense. The fact that so many man hours have been wasted on these things makes me crazy. And then you add the pylon rental. Good Lord, man. God's green
the
earth.
budget was like a almost. I've heard it was about $250,000 they spent in the last year on those things, so or more. Yeah.
Well, stand by and hold on to your hat because there's going to be more coming for your wallet, right? I mean, that's what we're hearing in the city of Vancouver. Our property taxes we were talking about last week. And then a lot of people, another campaign promise from the Ken Sim ABC party was body cam implementation on VPD. That being put forward without budget attached to it. That doesn't come without a significant cost.
Oh, those are expensive, but that's a capital expense, so that's interesting. I mean, it's not an operating expense, so different budget. But it's an interesting issue of privacy. But for those people who you hear stories like this. First of all, there's the police's argument. They're up against the Pivot Legal Society, who are out there filming them all the time. and then taken to court over their behavior, and the angle's only from their angle, and so you argue, well, what's the police's angle on this? How do we know what really happened? And so it gives the police a tool to fight back when they're being pushed by organizations who are also sometimes funded by the city. That are
you kidding me?
That means to be like to be litigious with our police department, and I'm not going to get into a debate about the philosophies of this whole process. They are out there fighting our current premier. We'll get into that later, but this is the world he came from, fighting for the rights of people and freedoms. So anyways, but there's also, from my point of view, I actually was on Granville Street once with a friend, just standing talking. And I love the police, but these two cops came up to us and started to tell us to ask us if there were 2 beers in the garbage can beside us, and asked if those were. I said no, and then they started kind of harassing us, and I'm like, "Whoa, what's going on here? Why are you?" What? And we were just chatting, and if we felt like we were being intimidated a little bit, and so obviously nothing happened. But I'm thinking it would be my word against their word if anything had escalated. And I know people who have had things escalate, and for sometimes their fault, sometimes who knows. So it'll provide evidence for both sides of the story, I think. That but it goes back to the privacy question, and Canada is kind of very, very opposed to cameras, even though cameras are everywhere all the time.
Everywhere all the time, and we should have more for those who would want to see our justice system move more swiftly. We're going to be talking about on Steele and Vance later today. We're going to be talking about yet another vandalism case caught on tape. A couple of women dressed to the nines, wearing thousands of dollars worth of clothes, smashing a window at a luxury shop. Like,
really,
if there was clearer pictures of these people, because they're kind of grainy, but you can see. But the whole call out is, do you know these women? Can you imagine how many crimes would be solved like that if we could just see the CCTV? Yes, because we watch British-based.
Exactly. It's how all crimes are solved in England, apparently.
Yes.
What would they do? What Hercule Poirot had no CCTV back in the day, but in England they have it all everywhere. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that proceeds. I think there might be lots of lawsuits and a lot of litigious behavior that'll probably slow that decision down by a long period of time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, geez, when you talk about how long we've been discussing responsible alcohol consumption, I believe we spoke about that in our very first podcast together. And I think we're on 199 now.
I put a motion forward when I was in council on this. So, that's how many years I've been talking about it. So to
George-Affleck.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's talk about provincial politics, shall we?
Okay. Yes.
Okay, David Eby, new Premier David Eby has shuffled his
former
cabinet.
AG, yes, he's shuffled.
Yeah.
Shuffle.
And notables. Let's start with Selena Robinson. That surprised me.
Big demotion from finance. That's the premier spot to get. And she was only in it for about a year and a half, 2 years, maybe demoted to, I don't even know what ministry of something. It doesn't matter because it's a demotion. You don't go
post-secondary education. Yeah. It's like Ministry of Adult Education, something like,
that's gotta hurt. So clearly she was not in the ear of the current premier. This is always very intriguing. I find these cabinet shuffles, it's, you really get a taste publicly of the, how caucuses work and how personalities and relationships matter. Obviously the math on it is pretty good too. The most women in the cabinet ever. I think there's the most
people of color.
Yeah,
it's most diversity. Yeah,
ticks a lot of boxes, but demotion's an emotion, and it hurts, and you just wonder what happened there. What was his? You never get to the real reason of publicly what happened.
No. It could be personal, it could be positional, it could be business wise, it could be you're just the odd person out because I want this person there instead.
Yep.
That could be the case.
You owe people money, not money, but you owe them favors because of what you got, who supported you as far as getting to the leadership. I mean, it's all this it's like a game.
It's politics.
He made a joke though. I thought it was quite funny. He when Eby, when he's, you know, he's kind of funny guy if you've ever met him.
I
But
have.
he
I really
made a little at the
appreciate
beginning.
him as
Oh,
a
I'm just going to
person.
make a couple of quick changes before I make this announcement. He just sort of, I'm just going to actually, you know what? Before I do this, I'm just going to make a couple of changes. I think it's quite funny. I thought that
Yeah.
was clever.
Very funny. And I have to say this about Premier David Eby, and I happen to be, so full disclosure, I'm his constituent. I'm in his riding.
Yeah.
But I've known him for years because I've lived here for more than a decade. And then as I've gone along in my talk radio life, so post breakfast television, where I've really leaned into the news talk radio, every single time I've called him, or DM'd him on Twitter, he has showed up, no holds barred, like we'll talk about anything,
I've
does
interviewed him
not
a couple of times too, and no problems getting
accessible. Yeah, accessible and open to debate, and not afraid of the question that, sorry, the dogs are running around, not afraid to address the elephant in the room if there is one. And boy, he's had some pretty significant files leading up to this role that he has. And I would like to just point out, and it's not just because I love Richard Zussman and Rob Shaw, but a matter of confidence. If you want to learn more about
how these
the
things
man
work. Yeah.
Yes, and the inner workings. Holy moly. Okay, so a matter of confidence. Put it in the political junkies stocking this Christmas.
Yes, that's right.
Attorney General Nikki Sharma.
Yeah, it's
Attorney
a big
General
deal.
Nikki Sharma.
And you know, new MLA for Vancouver, was part of the vision team in Vancouver. So you know, where you stand on that, I don't know. But yeah, that's good. That's a big deal. Attorney General. She's quite young.
Big deal.
So
How about Bowen Ma too? Another rising star.
Yeah, also
Bowen Ma
promoted.
being
She was
in
and
a
then there's
new
some
ministry.
and a couple of
Bowen Ma's
demotions. George Chow has got the boot. So former city councillor. Bowen Ma got promoted into, I forget what her
It's a new ministry. So it's a ministry that's associated with preparedness and safety, right? So it's the new climate, like it fits with her really. And it's something that I think every British Columbian can attest the fact that we need somebody with eyeballs on how climate change is impacting our province with atmospheric rivers and heat domes. And Bowen Ma, very outspoken about the want to move forward on that file. So it'll be interesting to see somebody who's that passionate about it now have some power to do something and find out just how difficult it is to get stuff done in politics, as you've very much pointed out to us.
Exactly.
Also
before we get to the last one now, because we have one, is, you know, what this all means though, by the way, a shuffle is a little taste. I think there's going to be an election call probably in February. My guess. This is
really because he said he didn't want that.
I just think, I don't know how he's polling. I'm sure he's looking at it going, if I don't do it now, Kevin Falcon's going to start eating my lunch. You know, I mean, you don't want to give your opposition too much time.
Kevin Falcon came out swinging on the Adrian Dix staying pat as health minister, is where we go.
The final one, which was, you know, you sort of wonder though, for Adrian Dix, who's the health minister, continues to be health minister. You kind of think, if I was him, you know, okay, can I have a break, please? Can I have, like, give me something else to do? Because this has been a tough 4 years. But in a way, it's also a celebration of his success, I suppose, and, you know, to continue on in a ministry after what we've gone through. The decision by the premier to let him stay there is a pat on the back as well. But he must be pretty exhausted of that ministry.
I'd also like to point out that from a layperson's perspective, and again, naivete on my part, so take this with a grain of salt. Don't agree with me so fast on that. No, I'm kidding.
I'll shake my head.
No, yes. No, but you teach me every day, and I think that's why UnSpun is so cool. With Adrian Dix as continuing as health minister under the Eby government, I look at that and think, in this pivotal moment where we just got the deal with the doctors that the doctors are happy with, and then, you know, we need to take care of nurses and our healthcare system is stressed and what we have going on, to shift that and hand it to somebody who's not been immersed in it and have to there's no time to get up to speed right now. There is no time. And if you want to shuffle to a different, there's a lot to do. So I kind of look at that as good governance, whether I agree with the NDP platform or not. Like, I look at that as one of those things. I'm like, I hope that's, you know, while I see that as an opportunity for Kevin Falcon and the BC Liberals to come at the Eby government saying, like, this is great, can you see it's all in collapse? And it's like, well, it's kind of collapsing in every other province and, oh, wow, everywhere around the planet right now. So, you know, our our shortcomings are many, but now is not the time really to parse apart like the blame game yet. Like that's coming. We're going to
And
get there. We're going to get there.
we know this health file is a tough one to push on an opposition point of view. If I were the opposition, I would focus on the fact that Selena Robinson's been demoted. So what does that say about the quality of finance that we've had? I would say it's a statement about maybe these guys don't know how to manage money properly, and they haven't been managing their money properly the last few years because they've had the wrong person in the job. We'll be watching this new person like a hawk, because maybe this is the party, and you'd think this would be the Liberals, or whatever they're going to be called, United, whatever. They're
BC United. It's a soccer team.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That they would focus, because the thing is that having been in office, you can finance and transparency, or money and transparency when you're in opposition are great like things to kind of talk about a lot, because it really first of all, because it's fairly, everything is related to them, especially money. Every department in relation. So if you can find ways to call them out on the money side, but it's not a great thing to win an election on. But it's good to have as always the go-to on, these guys don't seem to know what they're doing with their money in this department or that department or this. And now you get the head of the money being demoted, shows to me that we may be in bigger trouble than we thought. And maybe this party isn't the right party to be managing our money.
But didn't they just say that they were going to come in with a deficit and then found $5.8 billion? Like that's
like Vancouver too. Yeah, I know it's a standard procedure, but I think
I want to go back.
That would be what I would attack. Would be the weaknesses in their finance.
Let's go back to health, because I want to talk just quickly, because we're running a little bit short on time here.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to the health update that was this week with Adrian Dixon and Provincial Health Officer Dr. Bonnie Henry, who, by the way, next Thursday, the 15th, is going to be in studio with us on Steele and Vance. And every time I tell people that, there's either the person that says, "Oh my God, please thank her for me," and then there's the other side that's like, "Please tell her what the hell she was thinking on the blah, blah, blah." It's like, wow. When I think about this individual through, speaking of a few very difficult years, I look at Bonnie Henry and I think to myself, she's my age. She's just one person. She is just somebody trying her best to do the things to help the people in a crazy time. And the amount of pressure, and she's a scientist, she can handle it. She took it on. There are all these things and I would say that about man, woman, doesn't matter. But I'm looking at her as a human being. And I think about, wow, like the polarization of where this is at for her. And on top of it, now we have children dying in British Columbia from the flu. And this week's health briefing was all about, please get your flu shot. Get your flu shot. I had somebody reach out to me on Twitter going, "I tried to get a flu shot and I couldn't get it, and I can't get it for my kid because he's only 4. And I'm like, you're talking about a different shot, because you can get a flu shot just about anywhere right now. Just walk in, they'll put it in your arm. And flu shots for kids, 6 months and up, safe. Will keep your kid, because you'll still get the flu. You just won't get it as severely. So that's the physician in my life. My doctor told me, if you have the flu shot 2 weeks in, you will still get the flu, but you'll have it for a couple of days. Without the flu shot, that same virus will knock you out for a week. Maybe more. And
they say this year's flu shot's pretty good, pretty accurate.
Really good.
They're always like rolling the dice on this. They don't know really what flu is going to really dominate the community. I know I have my youngest kid, when he hated getting shots. It was always a real challenge for us for years. And he's been getting shots since he was little, and but it was torture. But now he actually looks forward to it. So, but you've actually had experience with the nasal.
I did. Okay, so my son Brady, who's never been afraid of needles, even as a baby, this kid just didn't even flinch when he got all of his vaccinations as a wee baby, which I always thought, that's weird. And then when he started to have a little bit of the social anxiety, when his best friend Ryan, very much a needle phobe, and when we went to get the flu shot, when I want to say he was like 6, and the pharmacist said, it was his pediatrician said, "Do you want the nasal spray?" And I'm like, "Is that a thing?" And I was like, "Do you want nasal spray? You want a needle, bud?" And he's like, "Oh, I'll nasal spray, sure." And so it was like a squeeze of Sinutab or whatever, sinus Dristan, nasal mist, whatever. And that was it. So the next year he got it again. And so he got used to that being how he got, because we get the flu shot every year because around elders. And then the third time in, they had run out because the nasal spray had become super popular. The reason why I tell this story is Dr. Henry made a real statement about how they have secured more nasal doses than ever before. So if your kid is a needle phobe, because a lot of parents stress out about that, you just said, you know, with your boy, it was hard for a while there. And it can be very, very difficult for kids who are afraid of needles. I get it. As the daughter of a lab technician, my mom was like,
and don't forget, it takes about
school.
Yeah, exactly. And don't forget about it takes about a week to 10 days for the shot to take effect. So you got to get it ASAP
before Christmas.
We're headed. This is in the height of the flu season now. We're not. October would have been when you should have been getting this done. Now, if you're going to do it, just get it done as fast as you can.
Get it done. Get it done.
If you believe in
the right
vaccinations. But if you don't, I can't help you.
If you don't, at George
_Affleck
on Twitter, at Jody Vance on Twitter. The anti-vaxxers love me as much as the anti-maskers, and I'll take it all. Mute, block,
jingling its bells.
I know. He's like, let me outside. Come here.
Take me for my Christmas jingle jangle outside with my little. I thought I had saw that's your shirt. Oh, what a cute little dog. For those listening, Calvin, you can't see this. Nice looking dogs here.
I got a couple of puppies.
Is that a tree
couple of
too?
Christmas puppies.
You got your tree up now there. You got the fire burning.
Fireplace going. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to.
I'm doing my painting over there.
I'm gonna have to put up some.
You gotta spruce it up.
I'll do it for our next show next week, which will be our last show for the year, episode 200 next week, and then we'll take a break over Christmas and be back for I think it's our 5th season.
It is our 5th season. UnSpunPodcast.com. Sign up. We will send it to your inbox. Peace out, George.
Bye-bye.